Time being 4 o'clock. Bring this meeting to order. All rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don? Here.
Here.
Here. Joe?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Turn your mics on, please.
Thank you, Patty. We're still new. Next item, is there any financial conflicts of interest by any of the commissioners?
No.
No.
The only thing, the conflict, when we get to the veteran service officer, I don't believe that I should vote because I've used him, and I don't think it'd be fair to vote one way or the other. I would just like to abstain from voting with the.
If you want to abstain, okay. All right, next item on the agenda, are there, okay, so that's a non-financial interest, Gary, for the veteran service officer? You're going to abstain for a non-financial, and you stated the reason?
I mean, it is financial,
Sure.
so
Okay,
there's money involved, so.
okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes? I'd like to move the public comment to before the executive session, if that would be okay with everybody, so we're not, so people can get out of here if they want to speak. Are there any other additions or corrections? Gary, did you want to talk about the email you got from Mr. Hartz about the trucks? Did you want to add
Yes.
that in?
Yeah, I would.
Let's add that in item 17A before the public comment. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Nope.
I'd entertain a motion to approve with the changes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 2, approval of the January 8th, 2019 commission meetings. Are there any changes?
No.
Were we going to do anything about the highway board? Did you want to add highway department on the committee assignments, or do you want to approve it?
That was already published.
Okay.
It's in there.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 3, claims. Entertain a motion on approval of claims.
Could I have just a couple questions, and forgive me, I
Sure.
should have asked them of Patty before, but under the elections, there's a $5,600 maintenance fee. Is that just to fix the machines, or is that a yearly thing?
No, it's just it was for the November election. They came and maintained
Okay.
the counting machine.
And then the coroner had a $15,000 charge. Is that just a normal, regular?
It's just, it's kind of hard to say, it's autopsies.
Gotcha.
And we don't know those,
And then there were 2 for the city. One was for the senior citizens at about $11,000, and then there is emergency planning for about $15,000. Are those just quarterly contracts?
Yeah, for the library, you said, or the senior, yeah. That's
Senior-
the
senior
regular, yeah.
citizens.
That was the 4th quarter that the city got it in later.
Okay, so we have 4 payments a year for that,
Yeah.
and then the emergency planning is 4 as well.
Yep.
Okay, and then one last one, highway, South Dakota DOT annual project was $13,952. Should I ask Mike about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
is Mike, he was here.
They're more just curiosity for my benefit.
Mike, come on up here.
Mike,
She's
do you
got
know
a-
what that one was for?
I'd have to look again back at the,
Okay,
if you just give me a call tomorrow.
it's just my learning curve, so there'll be lots of questions, but other than that, I didn't have anything.
Entertain a motion to approve claims.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 4, new wine and cider license for 6th Meridian Hops LLC. Do we have, is Michelle here to come speak on that? Michelle, why don't you come on up? Tell us about your license, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and tell us about your application.
I'm Michelle Donner. My husband and I have 6 Meridian Hops LLC, and we already have a beer and South Dakota wine license at our farm. We open seasonally down there, and we found that a lot of people wanted to have dry wines and Merlots, and that we don't really have a lot of that in South Dakota wines, so that's why we decided to apply for it. So
this will allow you to bring wine in from other states?
yeah, and we still do. I mean, we really like to push South Dakota, but we'd like to make sure that we have, you know, things that everybody likes, especially since we don't have hard alcohol or anything down there. So.
Yeah, I've been to your place this
Oh,
summer.
have you? Okay.
And wow, I would encourage anybody who hasn't been out there. It was just a wonderful place, and what you guys have done with a specialty crop in South Dakota, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah,
that
it's been
the
kinda
amount of
crazy.
work that you have to do to harvest those is
Yeah.
truly amazing. So
Yeah, we weren't even sure if we were gonna open again because it was so much work. But I mean, people really enjoyed it, and we had a lot of you know a lot of headway going. So we thought, okay, well, let's just keep it up. So, is there anything else?
any questions from any of the commissioners?
I had a question on the application.
Sure.
If I can find it. I'm thinking it was a mistake because the question is worded funny. Here, I'll let you read here. All managing officers of good moral character having never been
Oh,
convicted
sorry,
of a
yes, that was
felony.
definitely marked
Okay.
wrong. We do not have any felonies.
Okay. I guess
There's
for the
nothing-
public,
I'm
the
sorry.
question's worded funny. It says, are all managing officers of this corporation of good moral character having never been convicted of a felony? And it is marked no.
But it's supposed to be.
It should be yes.
That no, we have no felonies.
It's
I'm
kind
sorry.
of worded. Maybe they're trying to trick you there. but it's-
Well, it's clear now.
All right, any other questions by any commissioners? Can I entertain a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Do you want a roll call on this, or? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have to sign. Are you okay going earlier for the consent agenda?
Yeah, it's not advertised.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item number 5, the consent agenda. At this time, would any of the commissioners like any of the items on the consent agenda pulled out so that we may discuss them individually?
Well, I just had some questions on, it was probably pooled cash, and I think the jail report. So if my questions can be asked.
You have to take them out and then approve the agenda and then go back and discuss those two, and then we'll approve those two.
Which ones do you want pulled out, Sherry?
It would have been, gosh, it was either the treasurer's reconciliation with the auditor or the pooled cash.
It's the same.
I thought it
Yeah.
was, it's just different form.
Yeah.
So one of those is fine. I just wanted to clarify that I'm reading things correctly.
So you wanted the pooled cash?
That's fine.
Pulled out of the consent agenda?
Yep.
Okay.
I
Is there a second?
And
I'll
did
second. Oh,
Did you want the sheriff?
It
Said-
would, yes, because I had a question on jail income.
So we need a motion to pull out pooled cash and sheriff from the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Who had, Sherry?
I motioned.
That was your motion.
I'll second.
And second. Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. All right, so now we'll approve the consent. Go ahead.
You just kind of approved the
Okay.
consent agenda with pulling those out.
Okay.
So you're fine with
So
that.
I'd entertain a motion to approve consent agenda.
You already did.
Okay. Okay.
With that.
Use that
Yeah.
one. You're
All
good.
right.
Yep,
You're
yep.
good.
Thank you,
I'm
Phil.
confusing things, I'm sorry. So
So-
I'll go ahead and ask my questions then, if that's all right.
Sure.
On the pooled cash, so there's a line item that says cash on hand, which is about $7,680,000, and then we have a general fund balance of $4,645,000. Which of those two is limited by state laws carryover?
General, see
It's
the general fund, yep.
And what's the maximum we can have in there?
It's, I believe it's like 5%. I'd have to check for sure. You don't want to go over or have like an excess, because then you'll get written up for
Right.
having an excess.
I was just wondering how close we are to the ceiling, if you will.
Let me, if you want, I can go.
What? What's that?
You have to move mics, we can't.
Oh,
hear
I'm
mics.
sorry, I'm
We're not
sorry.
sure that is on as a podium, but-
All right. That better? Anybody know how to turn this up?
Just to your right.
I'll just,
Just to your right there, there should be some.
This one's at maximum.
I'll have Patty adjust it when she comes out. so.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
We'll have to
See, I'm a
speak
teacher, I'm
louder.
used to
So-
reaching the back of the room.
Did you have any other questions while we're waiting?
No, my other question's gonna lead into, is this a normal balance that we have at the end? Do we go from $1 million to $5 million to $3 million, et cetera? So I just want to see the consistency in the checkbook.
What's the date of the fund balance?
That would have been the end of December.
Is there a way to turn up the mics? We've had some complaints that
July 1,
you can't hear us
July
back
1.
there.
I don't know, Pat, you know where isn't the mics here? Sure, I don't have, it's about 14%.
Okay. All right. And then the other question I had on the jail, we have a jail fund balance of about $950,000. And then the sheriff's report had listed a jail income of $1.95 million, so $1,950,000. So I guess my question is, how do we handle income from the jail? Do we have to move that money to another fund?
That jail.
During the
that's-
year?
That's a whole special fund where the commissioners had 25% of the actual inmate care
Right.
goes into that jail fund.
Okay.
And that is strictly just for the jail.
Okay.
And the other jail, that is the other revenue that we get for the sheriff's.
Okay.
That's that on that report.
Okay, so 75% goes to the general fund, 25% of the income stays in the other. Great, I'm good. That's all I needed.
Any other questions by any of the commissioners? Need a motion to approve these now?
So moved.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 6, Nurse Quarterly Report. Is Julie here? Hello, Julie. Welcome. Come and up and introduce yourself to everybody.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
It's working okay? Okay. Well, welcome, new commissioners. Welcome back, Carrie. My name is Julie DeYoung. I don't know how familiar you are with my office. We're down in the basement. We're the community health office, and we're a smaller office, just so you know. We're made up of 2 nurses that are employed through the State Department of Health, myself and Jen Weschler. And then we have 2 clerical, 1 full-time community health secretary, and then a WIC secretary that is in our office usually 2 days a week. We also have a dietitian that comes to our office about once a week to do nutrition counseling. Our primary program in our office is WIC, Women, Infants, and Children. It's a nutrition program, generally for low-income families or for low-income children, if like they're in foster care, that kind of thing. We also provide immunizations, community health services, some disaster planning, breastfeeding class, those kind of things. You can see that in my quarterly report that was submitted to you. So this is for the quarter of October, November, December, and I'm still having trouble with 2019. So hopefully I don't get my dates and all that. Do you have any questions from the report? Kind of breaks down our services that we provided, our programs that we provide in the last quarter.
How many customers do you see a week generally?
It really can vary. You know, this week is a really busy week. In November and December, our numbers seem down, like I had gaps in my schedule, which is sometimes unusual. And then, of course, this time of year, also illness and weather can really take an impact on our schedules. So I'm usually in the office. I'm a 0.8 FTE, and Jen is a 0.7 in our office. She's full-time, though. She goes down to Union County and does 0.3 FTE down there. So generally, I have services I'm offering every day out of my office. I do block off time for meetings and also paperwork, which is a part of everybody's job, it seems like, with county and state. But so I'm generally pretty busy doing shots or WIC or working on plans for different committees.
Were immunizations up or down this year compared to normal? I think you had 131 flu shots, and then there was 22 others.
And you have to take into account that's for a quarter, October, November, December. We usually start our flu shots late August, early September, depending when we get our vaccine. We also did referrals this year over to the point of dispensing exercise at Mount Marty College, and we assisted with that. I'm actually the Department of Health pod planner for Yankton County, and so we were referring people over to take their children to that, and also we immunized Mount Marty students and pod volunteers this year.
Sure.
So, as far as our immunizations, I just kind of have to look at our stats.
I'm just curious, I guess, if it's seen, you know, if you're seeing more people.
This
getting the
time of
flu
year,
shot.
we always do.
Yeah.
We also do flu shots for the county and also for state employees too. State employees can also go out to HSC and get vaccinated, and then we provide to general public. So say I have a child that comes into my office for WIC, I'm reviewing their immunization record before they come in, hopefully, or at least when they're in my office, and then I'm also providing immunizations to them. Yeah. So that's a lot of our flu shots for children is tied to WIC certifications or other services we're providing. Yep.
Sounds like you do a lot in your department to keep the kids healthy, so we appreciate that.
Well, thank
very
you.
much.
I did have a few things if you don't have other questions from the report. We have an option of, we've always done a quarterly report. I've been with my office for 10 years now. We've always done a quarterly report. Now we've been told that we don't have to do quarterly if you allow it. It's really up to you. If you would like us to continue to provide a quarterly report, that's fine. Otherwise, we can go to biannual. I do a biannual stat analysis usually in January and July. So the stat analysis that's at the end of your report is actually from last July through December. I don't know if you have a preference on that, or if you'd like to get to know our office better, or
I think that might be good for the first year.
do quarterly still.
Yeah, if we
Yeah.
could. We can
That's
always
fine.
change.
Yep, and if you find later in the year you want to switch it up, that would be good. So we'll plan again to come back in April, provide you this last quarter and see where we're at and everything.
How are you weathering the federal issue?
I expected that question, and actually, we have not heard anything, which sometimes no news is good news.
Yeah.
So there has been no changes to our programs or services.
Okay, good.
Yep. The primary program there would probably be WIC, that we would see concerns, but we have not heard anything, so. WIC is an interesting program. It's our largest program, and that is nutrition benefits, which is foods for pregnant women, postpartum women. We promote breastfeeding, and then also infants and then children up to the age of 5 is who we deal with. And I always provide the commissioners in January a report on how much money, WIC monies were spent in our county. Our 2 grocery stores that work with the WIC benefits in Yankton County are Hy-Vee and Walmart. And this year, this past year, from October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2018, $335,000 were spent in Yankton County, just from WIC alone, for those populations. And then I compared that, I do this every year, so I like to look at the numbers. I compared that to the previous year, and it is down about $34,000. And I think that's partially tied to our caseload. Our caseload, as of this year compared to last year this time, is about the same. I think we're 366 on average a month. We were 369 at this time last year. But that catches the previous year when I was looking, because it would run, let's see, the previous report would run October 1st, 2016 to September 30th, 2017. And our caseload numbers were up. When I looked back from January to June 2017, we were at 411. So hopefully, to me, that means that we're not missing people in our community that are in need, and people are prospering a little bit better. The other thing that could tie into that is there may be people not using their benefits. Maybe they are accessing other programs and they're getting enough through those other programs. We do have some really awesome food pantries in town now through the school and then county and likewise. So
About 7 or 8 of them.
yeah, yeah. There's some really great programs. So I was interested in looking at that. The other thing is, as far as flu shots, I usually report off how many county employees we do a year. We did 37. We were up a few extra from last year, so that was good to see. So thank you for approving that, for those commissioners that approved that, because we know that healthy employees means that they'll be coming to work and they'll be keeping their families healthier too. So,
How do you advertise for your services? A new person moves to town. How do they know that they can come to you for assistance?
There's a few different ways. The central office in Pierre advertises for a lot of our programs and services. We also work with our local service providers, so such as WIC and all of that. We provide that out to the clinics. Social services provides us referrals. Oftentimes people will hear about WIC from them. It's interesting, word of mouth. Families know families, and so we get people that way. We actually have a marketing program, a plan, I should say, that we do every year for WIC specifically to get information out. One of the areas that is of concern, not just locally, but also statewide, is we've seen a decrease in the number for children, I think in the 4-year to 5-year age group. We've seen a decrease there. And so we're looking closer at working with Head Start and other programs that we can access those children and families a little bit better. Yeah.
Great.
So that's something we review with our data, our reports every year. That's a good question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any of the other commissioners have any questions?
No.
Well, thank you very much.
We do have I should mention, a public health conference this summer. I don't know if we need approval for that or not. It's for all staff. Usually they have one about every 2 to 3 years. Our secretaries often go with us. State pays for the training. They pay for the travel and lodging and meals for also county clerical, and then of course state employees that are there. So in previous years we've needed approval, and then I think the last time we did, we didn't.
That's because we had a resolution that we've been doing the last few years.
Okay.
That, it just goes by the head of the departments or.
Okay. So I don't need approval for that, or?
I think, yeah, the states.
Well, this would include county clerical on that,
Does the
so.
county have to pay everything?
No.
No, then we don't
Okay.
need to.
Okay. All right, I think that's everything I had on my list.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Have a good afternoon.
Next item on the agenda, item number 7, Resolution 19-1, authorization of staff to attend conferences, meetings, and conventions. What's that?
I don't think that mic's on.
It-
because
It's,
you're-
it's on.
No, up at the podium.
At the podium? Okay. I guess I could use
I know, see if it works.
it. It's on. Do we just need a motion to approve?
Yes.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 19-1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion pass. Next item on the agenda, item number 8, approve 2019 wage scale and resolution. Do you want to, is there anything to explain on this, or just need a motion to pass it?
So I just want to clarify, this wage scale includes the 2%.
Correct.
And we have been asked to give a 3% pay raise. I didn't know if at this time we wanted to discuss that further before we approve this.
I would think it makes sense to
Discuss it now?
discuss that now prior to approving this and then having a resolution to.
So I did some rough calculations at home, and you're going to see a trend. I tend to like numbers. So what I did was I evaluated how much the 2% pay raise costs the county. So based on the salaries, and then I went with full-time 8 hours at about 2,080 hours a year, and I guessed at the part-time 30 hours a week, and that would be 1,560 hours a year. So when you did all of that, a 2% raise cost the county about $109,000. A 3% would add about $54,000 to that. And again, I might be overstating the part-time at 30 hours a week. I'm sure we probably have some folks who don't work that much, but it gives you a ballpark idea of what these percentages mean. We discussed at the last meeting that the 2.1% was allocated for our budget to grow. And I do feel that the county's wages should at least grow with how much we can expand our budget at minimum. So I don't know if anybody else has any input. I'm sure you guys have given some thought to this. I don't think at this time I'm comfortable giving 3, but I am comfortable giving 2.5.
I was gonna
And
suggest 2.5.
the reason I don't want to go with 3 is because I do think that at budget time, or at shortly before, we really need to go through our wage scale and to make sure that we are giving proper compensation where it's needed, and then to maybe discuss where we go from there. So I feel comfortable 2.5 certainly is doable. That is an extra $27,000 above the $109,000.
Is that for all employees?
That was everybody on the list, and again, I guessed at the part-time and the full-time. I didn't take into account any overtime whatsoever. So that was a, like I said, a educated guess on my part.
Brian, I think you had that number.
I just wanted to say one thing. Sherry's numbers.
Come on up here, Brian.
Just a minor thing. Sherry's numbers are correct. The only reason they're a little higher than mine is I didn't include department heads, and almost all the employees in this building work a 35-hour week. So that was the reason yours are a little higher than mine.
Okay, gotcha. So any other discussion I'm certainly open to.
I would just like to add, I'm not opposed to raises, but the only problem is that when you give 2% to somebody like our state's attorney, or that's making $74,000, $75,000 a year, and you give 2% to somebody working that's making $30,000 a year, there's a gap, and it increases every year. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it because they have different duties and responsibilities, but the gap keeps growing every year. And of all the years that I worked for the pipelines, we fought that because the bosses were making $250,000 a year and they'd get a 6% raise, and we were making $45,000 a year, and we got a 6% raise. So we always fought that, and we finally won. So that's the only comment that I have, that I would be against it. I'm not against raises, because everybody, with the cost of living, everything goes up, so.
And I did touch on that at the last meeting, which you weren't here. So, but I think that conversation about March, April, May timeframe, maybe we can address that differences and going forward. But I think at this time, with since the budget for this year has already been approved, we're supplementing, and I'm comfortable with 2.5.
I think I could go along with that, with the assumption that, yeah, later in the year, we'd look at a true wage study and maybe some rebalancing if needed, but.
I did talk to Greg Henderson over at District 3, and forgive me, I left my notes at home, but they are doing another state analysis of all the counties. They did it in 2017, and we all have a copy of that. They will be doing the data gathering in February, and then put it together and present it certainly before budget time. We will have that information in hand as well to see where we rank amongst all the other counties. Are we high? Are we low? Are we in the hunt? And again, it's just more information, and then piggybacking on what you said, Gary. I think we can get a better plan going forward before budget time, and that's when we should do it.
We should make it retroactive to January 1st, is that your plan? This?
For this?
Yes.
Well, nobody's been paid yet.
No, not till the end of the month.
So,
this is-
Right.
Yep.
So, okay.
So the checks that go out next week would be 2.5, in my opinion. Again, we still have to vote on it.
True.
So,
I think this
And
is a good way to tell, our employees, how happy we are with their work and how hard they do work. So we value them and we want to keep them. So entertain a motion on the wage scale resolution.
Is this for all employees or including department heads then?
I'm open to input on that one. I've been the one talking the most
I
up here,
think
so
the
I'm gonna.
push was without department head, the
Do you
original
have the
request for
numbers?
the 3%.
You have what's the different numbers with department heads and without?
I didn't pull them out. I just did one swoop.
I'm okay with 2.5 across the board. I just wanted to clarify, because I think the original request was
Yes.
without department.
Yes, it was.
Is that a motion, Joe?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve a 2.5% increase to hourly wages across the board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? You want a roll call on that, or? Yep. Roll call vote, please.
Joe,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Sherry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Gary,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, approval of the 2019 calendar. I had some conflicts with this, but I think I could just make it work as
Okay.
presented, so I can live with it, yeah.
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion for approval of the 2019 calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 10, reappoint veteran service officer. Is Mike here?
Yes.
Mike, come on up.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Why don't you tell the audience and us a little bit about what your department does and,
Okay, I'm the Veteran Service Officer for Yankton County. What I do is really assist our veterans and their families in applying for and navigating through the administrative processes of the VA and the state of South Dakota. There's a few collateral jobs involved as well. We have a DAV van that we provide transportation to veterans when they need to go up to Sioux Falls. And it covers kind of the southeast area. We are allowed to make direct access to Sioux Falls by going up either Highway 81 or Highway 50 and I-29. You can use Highway 46, you can use Highway 19, but we're not allowed to go west of 81. We're not allowed to go south into Nebraska. If we have veterans from those areas that want to use the van, they have to meet us here at the south parking lot, and we can get them up to Sioux Falls. That van travels every Tuesday and Thursday when we have drivers available. Geez, and being in here, being the so-called county veteran service officer, I'd point out that, you know, our location makes it so that, yeah, I take care of, there's like about 1,700 veterans in Yankton County, but I'm helping folks in Knox County and in Cedar County. I help some folks up in Bonham. If people trade here in Yankton and a veteran comes in, I'm not gonna turn him away because he lives in Turner County or Hutchinson or anything like that. If they want help, I'm gonna help them. The expenditures that the VA spends in Yankton County on an average is about $5 million a year. And it's not like I help get that all in there, but I do my part, and I'm probably a bit aggressive in contacting veterans and trying to get them to come in and get help if they need it. I would remind you that 40 years ago, there's like 26,000 Vietnam era veterans that needed some help. Some of them needed some help, and they were turned down with regularity. And it's easy to say, you know, take a leap in the lake when you're 25, but now that we're 65 and 70, 75 years old, our bodies won't let us do that anymore. And so I see a lot of veterans that come in from that age bracket, and I try to assist them as best I can. There and their families as well. The money that gets spent by the VA is educational benefits, medical benefits, compensation for injuries that a veteran sustained, and pension for the veteran or his widow if he's a wartime service veteran. So I just kind of do the best I can, and that's about it.
How long have you been at this?
This will be my 6th year, and it's been I could probably be here 30 years and not know everything that I need to know, because every veteran is individualized. I deal with the fact that so-and-so got this, how come I can't have it? Well, so-and-so was at a certain spot, and he got, you know, bummed up by doing this or that or whatever, and it's a tough deal, and it's very tough when you can't help a veteran at all, and it happens on occasion. So it's a unique job, but we're doing it for unique people. It's one of those deals. At the end of World War II, about 88% of the population had a direct connection to a veteran. Now, 70 years later, that percentage is like 3%, less than 5%. And I'm just ornery enough to try to help them, that's all.
I know from personal experience, it's not always easy dealing with the VA, and for you to be able to help our local veterans get through the bureaucracy, that goes a long way. And
Yeah, it's tough because you're getting a document that you're not familiar with, and you're trying to give them a good answer, and you don't know if you are. So it took me a while, the first year that I was doing this, it was just one great big learning curve. And since then, it's just gotten stronger for me, and you learn. You fly by the seat of your pants and learn.
Yeah. The VA has gone to all digital records now for new veterans, correct? Are you still dealing with a lot of the old?
I'm not using any
system?
paper forms when I
Okay.
help people anymore. It's all done through the internet. We have a system that's called Vetrospect, and we pay about $400, $500 a year for Vetrospect, Patty. Yeah, and it's a good system. It's not perfect, but it helps expedite claims for our veterans.
Do you have what you need in your department to help veterans? I'm asking.
We're doing okay.
Okay.
I will make things work the best I can.
Well, you let us know if there's anything we can do to
You bet.
further help you.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I haven't had time to talk with Mike since I got out of the hospital, but he's helped me. I will tell everybody right now. December 4th, when I drove up to the VA, I thought I had the flu. The VA did a wonderful job because I walked into the emergency room, didn't have an appointment. They said, "What's the matter?" And I think I got the flu. Well, what else? And I said, "Well, I got a little bit of chest pain." The nurse in the emergency room ran out of there looking for a doctor, and I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "We take the words chest pain real serious at the VA." So within less than an hour, they had me transported to the heart hospital across 229, put a stent in me, and determined that I needed double bypass surgery. So on the 7th, they did a 5-hour surgery. I got some new parts in here from my leg. Took a vein out of my leg. So now I won't have to come up and tell you what happened to me. Everybody knows about it. So.
Are there any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Well, we really appreciate everything you do to help the local veterans in our area. I know the Sioux Falls VA has quite a large area that it helps, and especially with Wagner. Is the Wagner VA open, or are they closing
The
down?
Wagner CBOC is still in operation. The VA has established a new CBOC in North Sioux City. There's a big promotion on what they call care in the community. They call it CITC, and that involves allowing veterans who live a little bit further out, the guys that live about 45 miles and further out, to seek medical care in their home communities if they have medical care providers in those communities. It's a process that you have to go through and fill out paperwork on, or digital paperwork, and sometimes it's a bit troublesome, but in some regards, if you look at my job as the VSO as like being a combat medic, where I try to stabilize what's going down, and if you need somebody that's a specialist, then I'm gonna get you to that person. I'm gonna try to get you so that you get the information that you need, and that's really basically what I do, is kind of like a triage medic, and you know, and if you need a sounding board, yeah, I get to do some of that too, because I get called out by the Human Services Center and stuff like that to talk to veterans that are having PTSD problems and TBI and that kind of thing, so traumatic brain injury, and just visiting with them and trying to help them sort things out. So it's a complicated thing. That's the best way I can put it to you.
Well, we appreciate everything you're doing. So, thank you.
You bet.
I do need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the reappointment of the Veteran Service Officer.
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'll-
Opposed?
I just have to abstain.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your hard work.
You bet.
Next item on the agenda, item number 11, Rat River Productions. That's always when the phone rings at the worst time, right?
I'm gonna pass this. Save me walking around. Just kind of general. I'd like to introduce myself to the new commissioners of that. Welcome. My name's Craig Ernster with Rat Productions. I'm the guy behind the camera. It's been doing the videotaping videos for the last 14 years for the county. I was given one simple directive by Alan Sinclair. He said, get the best video out you can as quickly and as timely as possible. And I think we've met that over the years. We've been told that our videos are probably one of the best, audio and video wise. And we're talking with Sioux Falls, and we've compared them. We started with the original commission meetings. Now we do the planning, zoning, drainage board. In a nutshell, we shoot the videos, we render them, ingest them in the computers, and we try to get them out the very next morning. Patty can attest to that. We are usually in the morning or the afternoon, depending on how long the video. If they're 3 hours, then it's a little later in the day, but we do that. We provide three things for you. We create three different copies: a digital copy for broadcast to the internet, one for the local. Now we've gone digital with that. It's for the local cable stations. That's digital too. And then we create the backup DVD master, which is kept with Patty. So if we ever need a copy of it for legal purposes or something, we can pull that off and create that. We also keep it for 1 year of the meetings on our server, just in case. Never know. One of the things that's become in the last, well, since 2015, when we first put the first meetings on the internet, it has become a very valuable tool to both the constituents and to you commissioners. It's, I mean, our viewings are 50 to 1,300, depending on the issues, depending on what the meeting is. We keep them up there for a year, and then we take them down. And that's part of the deal that we get through YouTube. They give it to us for free, the amount of time we have. It's like a peg channel. So after a year, we take them down. It's more of a good stewardship with them since they allow us that much time. Normally, you can't put that much up there for that much time. So our viewings, just to give you an idea, most people are using portable devices and they're watching about 50% of the meetings. So there's a lot of it, when the people watch, they watch them. And that's kind of what we do in a nutshell. And like I said, we've been doing it a long time. And I'm also here for a small raise. It's been 4 years since I've asked for one. I've given you the kind of the rates. I would like to go from a $25 raise for the commission meetings and a $15 raise for the meetings, planning, zoning, and drainage. Pat's okayed with that. I'm just here for mine with you guys and to approve my little rate increase. So other than that, it's you guys get your more bang. You get pretty much more bang for the buck with me, because if you try to price it out, it's pretty. I've been doing it. I do it for just mainly getting the message out there. Basically, when Alan asked me to do that, that's what I've always done. But like I said, it's been about 4 years, so I figured I need to kind of go up a little bit. So other than that, that's all I got to come with. So
Craig, do you do special meetings and budget meetings
if it
as
needs
well?
to be, I've done a couple, but only on request.
Okay.
And that's just, you need to let me know in advance because I do work full-time on my other production stuff and that. But yeah, we do a few of them, and that's just on, requests and that. And sometimes they're not even broadcasted. Sometimes they just want them for the purpose of having them for record. So, and you are getting audio up, but you guys need to turn the volume up just a little bit.
Okay.
So, just to let you know.
I don't know how to do that.
I'm hearing it through the headphones, but we need to bring it up a little bit. Last time I did address it, I think Patty or somebody, we were too hot. So it was like buzzing when we were recording, and so we asked if we turn it down a little bit, and I think we just need to bring it up a little.
Is it the mic or the overall?
The overall.
Speaker system
The overall
come up?
needs to be brought up. You guys are crystal clear, but it's the amount of volume we're not getting.
Right.
So, just to let you know. But that's all I'm asking for, you know.
And you said your last raise,
It was 2015, about this same time,
Okay.
when I addressed the new commissioners, and they went ahead and, you know, like I said, I talked to Pat. Pat said that's okay, but I need to talk to you guys for the raise from your end, you know. So,
Okay.
you have any questions for me or anything?
Mr. Chairman, I know I've had some requests too that people would like to see the budget taped because they're just not able to make it down here, you know, because it's sometimes at noon and
And that was requested when we were talking with the previous commissioners. They were in the process of working on that, but we just had never finalized it. And then it's just been 2 years we've been doing the planning and zoning and drainage. And it's just been kind of like a step-by-step process to bring it in. But you just have to let me know or let Patty know. She'll give me the information and we can go from there.
This is your personal equipment that you're using. It's not the county's equipment.
County doesn't own anything. I own everything. I don't pass the cost on to the county. We just went to ultra-high-speed internet this year, which was a huge increase for us. And we do that so we can get it out quicker. And that's, you know, the software, everything, I own it, and I absorb most of the cost. The county does a small cost sharing because it's Adobe products, and then we pay for that on a monthly basis. So many years ago, we worked out a small percentage. We figured out how much the county uses, and we, you know, that's it. You know, they pay a small fee of that, but that's it. And that's all we've ever done.
I don't know what the rest of the commission's feelings are, but I think if we do have special meetings or budget meetings, they should be recorded. I mean, it's almost becoming standard anymore. Whenever there's a public meeting, there should be some video record of it. I know I've heard a lot of people say they can't make the meetings, but they do. Obviously, that's what's telling me. If 1,300 people are viewing it, there's an interest in public government, and that's a good thing, in my opinion.
And, you know, the thing is it all depends, you know, it's become, I've noticed that the cable was important at one time, but once we went to internet, it has become probably the important tool because people can pull it up off their iPads or whatever almost in instant. I've seen people on their phones watching parts of the meetings before they come up to talk about something. So, again, you know, it's become a very valuable tool for the public as much as you guys too, because I know some of the other commissioners were using it to review, you know, other issues and stuff like that. So, but that's why I'm here. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. If not, I'm gonna get back to what I'm doing. But I just asked for my little raise. You know, it's been like I said, 4 years, and it's just to pay myself. I'm terrible at asking. Last time it was 7 years. So that tells you how much I think about it. So. But I'll leave that with you.
Thank you.
Just let me know.
Thank you, Craig.
Yep.
Well, I think it's a pretty important service that he's providing to the county. In the spirit of transparency, having a meeting recorded, I think, is almost a must in these days.
1,300.
Yeah, up to 50 to 13, depending on the issues, what this paper says.
So at 24 commission meetings and 12 planning and zoning and 12 drainage, that's $960 overall increase.
And I think the rates are reasonable.
Very.
You know,
Very.
like you said, anybody that's had family pictures recently.
Yeah. Or bought a camera knows
Right.
how much they are.
So no, I think they're in line. I don't think this is a absurd request. I'd make a motion to approve the increase of $25 per meeting.
And 15 for the
15
drainage
for
board.
the planning and drainage board.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 12, lack of acceptable internet provider in Utica area. Chris and Ashley Huber, are you guys here? Hello and welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself.
I'm Ashley Huber. I'm a newer resident to Yankton County. We bought property out by Beaver Lake, and this summer we started looking for an internet provider because I work from home. And we contacted HughesNet, Speed Connect, Midco, Golden West, Yankton Wireless, CenturyLink, DirecTV, Viasat, and that's just to name a few. And within those providers, there is no one that can provide unlimited internet. The speeds are absurdly low at up to 10 megabytes per second. And if you use any of those services and you go over the data usage, then your speeds are slowed, or you have to pay more money to get more data, which, for example, Viasat can be anywhere from $200 or more. And that, in the 21st century, is absurd. So in our search, we did find one provider, and that was South Dakota Internet. And we researched what services they would be able to provide and the speeds, and they would be able to provide everything that we needed. And being that I work from home, I have software programs that I run, and they have to be supported. Currently, we use HughesNet, and it is unacceptable for what I do. I spent just this morning, it was 30 minutes just trying to send a link in an email. And at the end of those 30 minutes, I was like, okay, this is enough. This is absurd. And so I had to send it a different way. That has caused a lack in productivity as well, not to mention the internet for our children's education, which is a very big concern. My son needs to go on and he needs to be able to do research for projects for school. And unfortunately, because we're capped at data and I have to work from home, it's so expensive that we cannot afford to do that. We've upped our cell phone plan data, and we've spent hundreds of dollars a month just so that I can work from home. And our children don't get to use the computer because we don't have enough data. They have to use our cell phones. So I contacted South Dakota Internet, and from the research that I found, they provide great service. They have reliable speeds with unlimited data, no contracts, but we can't get it. We have over 20 households within a 2-mile radius of our home that also use the internet. And I've talked to some of them, and some of them also work from home, and they too are not satisfied with the services that they've been provided. So I contacted South Dakota Internet, and I asked them why. I said, why can't we get your service? I have to have this. And they explained to us that they're having issues with Yankton County, which is keeping them from getting on to Napa Junction grain leg, which would enable them to cover the Utica area. And Napa Junction has told them several times that if they have approval from the county, that they would be able to do that. So after some more research and more last week, we have learned that this is what is holding us up. This is what Yankton County has taken the position that these brackets used by South Dakota Internet are towers, just like a tower that Verizon would put up, and which is the reason why South Dakota Internet cannot get on to Napa Junction. I asked the county zoning office last week for a list of other internet providers that have a conditional use permit. I asked specifically for a copy of the application and permit for Yankton Wireless because they are a service that does the same thing. However, I was told at first that they don't have one. And then in another email back to me, I was told, oh, that they do. I asked for the copy and I had no response. After looking through the documentation from certain litigations that are happening, I really find a lot of holes within that information. And I question why Yankton, or why South Dakota Internet is required to have this conditional use permit when no other companies are, like DirecTV or Speed Connect, Rise. So how does that work, that one business has stipulations put on them and not the rest? So I'm here to ask the commission what they can do to help us, to help South Dakota Internet be able to get cleared of this so that they can get on to Napa Junction, Grain Leg, so that they can provide internet not just to us, but to there's a list of hundreds of people that need this service. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Is there any discussion amongst the commission? From what I understand, that's under litigation, and we should probably, us being new, we haven't had a brief on everything that's going on, but we appreciate you coming and making us aware of the situation, and we'll get up to speed and be in contact with you.
I know our state's attorney's out of town now, but we've talked, we need to set up a...
Probably have to do a special meeting when he gets back and just get up to speed on all these issues, so thank you.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda, item number 13, update on James River Bridge. Mr. Sidlacek. Welcome.
Hello.
Whose that is. Or Don might inherit it, right, since he's not here.
I have a few extra copies if anybody.
Hand one out to the other side of the room, too, please.
I don't have a whole lot. The first sheet here, that is listing of all of our bridges. And that would be the 28 recommended load ratings. They changed them to last year. The ones in the red are the ones that did change last year. On the third page, that is a map. If you have questions on the structure numbers, if you look on the map there, that'll show you where each of them are located. The map is not, we do not have a up-to-date map, so like the single unit combination numbers on the map are not correct. You got to go by the sheet. But yeah, the Stone, on the Meadow Road, the Stone Church Bridge, Jim River Bridge there, that one dropped from 1424 to 1113.
What caused that, Mike?
On the south abutment, I assume it's from the salt and stuff from over the years running down the hill. There's a lot of flaking. And then I believe there is one of the pillars have some flaking and chipping on the pillar. So, and the big thing is there's I don't know the word for it right off the top of my head, but there's like saddles that the bridge sits on, and they're all tipped to the north. So there's some issues with that bridge. For closure right now, I don't believe it's that bad of an issue yet to close it, but the numbers are getting down there. It's something that
They're headed the wrong way.
yeah, they're heading them the wrong way. Jamesville Bridge, that is one of our, I would say one of the better bridges out of all of them. That still had a drop, went from 24 to 40 down to 24.31. Johnson Bridge, well, that went from 24.40 to 24.32. That's the bridge everybody knows about with the repairing of the cracks. And
Is that put to?
Is that what these photos are?
that should be put to bed now. That's what the photos are. I got photos of the crack, and then photos of the plates. And on that bridge, if you notice on the top plates, the reason the bridge was closed for so long was they had to chip out all the concrete and plate it, pour new concrete on there. They still have to come back this spring and finish the summer. We had polymer chip seal put on all 4 of them bridges, and the weather was too cold to do that at the time, so they will come back this spring and finish that.
Just on this bridge or the
Yep,
other?
just
Okay.
this is the only bridge that
didn't get completed.
that didn't, well, it was completed, but then they had to cut the concrete out.
So it didn't bring it back up to where it was before?
No.
It's just a Band-Aid almost.
Yeah, well,
Is there any reason given for not bringing it back up to legal load?
that's a Clark Engineering
That you-
question.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't have, I just don't know if they gave a specific reason.
From my
If
understanding,
it was due to this repair, or if it was the bridge itself and the rest of the condition of it.
yeah, well, we'll just have, best would have, best to answer that question would be Clark, so. And then last would be Fleegs Bridge. Went 1925, and it went up to 24.33.
Why did it go up?
Well, that's not fair because it went down,
No.
right?
Is that with using the different methods for?
That, I believe, the one prior, yes, it was a different method used, so.
Because that was 40 and, I don't remember what single was.
24.40.
Yeah. So that went 24.40 then to 19.25, and then it increased to 24.33.
Correct.
So if you could rate them 1, 2, 3, 4, how would you do that right now?
If I was to grade and as in the condition,
Yeah. You know, best bridge to.
best to worst, the best would be, it'd be a toss-up between Jamesville and Fleegs.
Okay.
And then third, Johnson, and Stone Church, the worst.
I see on this page you have invasive inspection done on 1.9. That was with the checking the welds.
That was the bridge inspection that they dropped it down to, I believe, 5 ton there for a while. And then there was issues with trucks still going across it, so that's why we closed it. That's all I have.
I don't know about the rest of the commissioners, but I think we need to set a special meeting to have Clark Engineering come down and give us the full assessment on all of these bridges.
I sat through on back in December, beginning of December, and in November, somewhere in there. Anyways, very informational. It was about 2 hours long. They have a slideshow with any of the bridges you have questions on. They can go through and show you what is wrong with it. Ask questions as you go, and I think that'd be great for you guys.
That
It's
log jam that was on the Fleet Bridge this summer, I haven't been able to look at it. Is it worse or better? Or?
I have not, honestly, I have not been down there probably since September.
If you get time, could you check and
Yep.
let us know? I know it was quite significant this summer. And,
Okay.
it comes and goes, but
Yep.
it's a lot of pressure.
Right. Yep.
You had Clark Engineering has an opportunity on January 28th at 9 to
Yes.
come.
Yep.
So unless any of the commissioners have an issue, I think we need to set a special meeting for 9 o'clock on January, open to the public, and we'll do an in-depth analysis of each of these 4 bridges with Clark Engineering.
Yep.
So, is that okay?
I'll
All right.
I'll call him and make sure.
Okay. Yeah, let us know if
Yep.
it's not going to work, but.
I talked to him earlier today, and he was thinking that would work. So.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Mike from the commission? Thank you very much. You got something? Come on up here, Patty, if you got a question.
So am I understanding this right, that all the money and time we put into that Johnson Bridge and it's still a piece of crap?
It's not the worst one, I guess. What we're going to do is we're going to do an in-depth analysis with the engineers, and we need to, in my opinion, we need to really find out what issues we have with the bridges and what we can do to prolong their life as long as possible. I'd encourage you to come on Monday, and you can learn with us, with the engineers, what the status of the bridges are. So,
Okay, thank you.
thanks. All right, thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda, item number 14, Class F permits. Joe, you want to take this?
Yeah, I want to open up discussion. We've talked about it kind of over and over. Class F permits, there's one view that they need CUPs, there's one view that it's building permits. I think we've had enough litigation that we need to discuss how we're going to handle this to prevent litigation and maybe see how the current suits maybe turn out. But we probably need to prevent future, I guess, litigation is my thoughts.
Well, I know, we just got served with 2 more, and I don't even know how many are going on right now with Class F permits. And to me, there's an expenditure of taxpayer dollars on some of these. We don't want
Right.
producers to be in the position where they have to defend their actions. It needs to be more clear-cut, and we need to do what we can to conserve taxpayer dollars.
Well, that, and we've got a mix. We've had some producers come in and get conditional use permits, and some have not.
We've even had the same producer not get conditional use permits.
Right,
And
so I
then get
think,
conditional use permits for the same facility.
you know, I think we need to eventually get clarity on that, but I don't see any harm, I guess, going forward with requiring conditional use permits on those. There's no performance standards in the ordinance required on top of just the building permit. So it's no, it's really no additional.
I think they still need to go through the conditional use process of going through the
Right,
zoning
right.
and planning board and all of that. So is that what you're looking at?
I guess that's, yeah, I'd like to discuss, see what people's thoughts are on that.
Would anybody like to speak on this subject? Anybody in the audience?
Dan,
Yep, come on up. Are you okay standing, or do you want to sit down? Okay.
it's just torn ligaments, but I spent my operating money on litigation. How many years has the Class F been the way it is right now, where you could get one, you did not need to get a conditional use permit?
To my understanding, Louis, is that we've operated that way for some time. I guess my point for the discussion is that, one, that doesn't make it right. If we've misinterpreted the whole time, that doesn't make it right. And maybe we've handled it right, but I guess my point is there's 2 more suits that came through that we
Yeah, and the one has been sued and dropped and sued and dropped, and everybody takes turns suing them because it's
Can I
part of
ask
the
you, though,
overall delay until the guy goes broke and gives up.
So if we just simply administer conditional use permits, it prevents the delay, is what I'm getting at.
Okay. Now, are you going to start on it from here
Let's do
on
this
forward,
where-
or are you going to try
let's
to
do
do
this
it
where you get 3 minutes and go
retroactively?
speak your- we're going to give you 3 minutes, come up, state your case. We're not going to have all this back and forth. So
Okay,
get up
I
there
had
and
questions,
state your
but I'll
case.
just assume. Now, did all of you guys go up to the Dakota Rural Action sponsored meeting in Mitchell where they taught you, Mitch Peterson got up and taught you how to kill CAFOs with grassroots operation? Did
I
you?
was there, and that's not the message I got. Mr. Kettering, who's not here,
Yeah,
was there as well. Louis.
I just want to interject something. Last year, when the new commissioners weren't here yet, I asked our state's attorney, I said, what's this going to cost the county, all this litigation with all these lawsuits? Not just CAFO ones, there's other ones. And he said, well, we got insurance. Well, I said, all the insurance I read, there's a deductible. And I was told that there's a $25,000 deductible for the county to pay. So you're not just having a problem. The county is footing out. Isn't that right, Pat Garrity? $25,000 deductible?
No.
Okay. Well,
What happens if my lawyer bills $30,000 and I went in and did everything legal?
no.
And I got held up for a
I'm just
year and a
telling you,
half and
it's
paid.
costing the county money too, so.
Did you get a conditional use permit?
I did at
For
the
your
end
farm.
because I didn't know what the hell was gonna happen. And rather than have to come back in and start over with another damn lawsuit, I applied and got a conditional use permit.
And that's what we're discussing.
And the conditional use permit has no requirements for a Class F.
And that's what we're discussing.
So it would be like issuing a speeding ticket to a parked car. As far as giving, here's your ticket, but don't worry about it because you weren't moving.
It's simply a permit.
Why this long?
Looking through what requires conditional use permits, bed and breakfasts require them, churches, daycares. If you look on section 507, if you sell fireworks in the country, you need a conditional use permit. Golf courses, kennels, there are 47 different things. I don't know what the performance standards for a church would be either, but to prevent issues like just what happened to Mr. Johnson, I think we need to be following the conditional use permit process. That saves taxpayer dollars and it saves that headache of everybody else. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this? Patty, come on up and state your name.
When the CAFO rules or classifications were written, what were the intentions of the different, the top part that reads, these shall get a conditional use permit, and then it goes A, B, D, C, D to F. Was the intention that all of them get a CUP? That's another one of those very vague areas that it's not very clear. But I believe the intention was that they all need a conditional use. My opinion.
Thank you. Would you like to speak, John? Come on up.
John Gunderson, Irene. I was talking with someone in the audience before the meeting. I've had the opportunity the last month or two in my spare time to go through the records that my mom had when she was on the county commission when zoning was enacted. And part of that process that I got involved was somewhat incidental because my mom had a couple knees replaced, and she would send me to meetings with a notebook, because this was before we videotaped this stuff, to take notes to tell her what was going on. So I've got a bit of history. The original intent of the Class Fs, there was someone, one of the county commissioners by the name of Jerry Beanert, who fought zoning vigorously for years, saying we don't need a permit for a damn corner post. And the idea was that the Class F operations were aimed at the mom and pop stuff, the people with under 300 head of cattle, the small feed yards, somebody with an acreage and a couple horses. Since there are no restrictions on a Class F, why have them go through the paperwork? That has been what Tom Fiedler and Jerry Beanert and Sinclair and what everybody else has agreed, that if you look at the ordinance and you say, okay, Class Fs have to have a CUP, the first people you're going to have in here are the 4-H kids with livestock, because anything over one animal unit has to have a CUP. And so if you got a, if little Susie got a horse for Christmas, she's going to have to go through the CUP process. I was talking with
Well, I've spoke with the state's attorney, and he doesn't believe that that's the case, because that's not an AFO under the definition of our zoning ordinance. Do you know what the definition of an AFO under zoning ordinance is?
I believe it's confined livestock for more than 45 days.
Yeah, where there's no residue that grows during the growing season. So
Correct.
If Susie has her horse in the pasture and it grows grass, it's not an AFO.
That's going to be an interesting interpretation that you just made.
These are the zoning laws that others, like your mother, put in place, and I think you'd agree that there's a gray area here and that there is confusion. And what we agree, I don't think there's anybody out here that says this isn't a little confusing. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to address this, but I think in the meantime, we need to try to avoid some of the confrontation that we're getting and avoid spending all these tax dollars on these lawsuits. And if you got a better idea to do that, we're all ears. Please tell us.
I'm not here at this point. The question was raised about history. I just want to bring the point up of why they did what they did, why they did it. I'm not going to comment on litigation. And maybe it'd be, okay, I'll throw this in. Maybe it'd be a good idea to have the 4-H kids go through the process, because if we're going to have paperwork on everything we do, they might as well get used to it if they're going to get involved in animal ag.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Christy, come on up. Go ahead, bud.
Robert Frang, 44877 305th Street, Volin, South Dakota. I've been attending these meetings for 20 to 30 years of zoning. And we started out, it was the big panic. There was going to be a huge cattle feedlot out by Utica, 20,000 head. That's where it started. Then everybody got onto it. Okay, where I live out by Volin, the mileage, the area I live in there, when I grew up from 60 years of driving by those on school buses and stuff, about every half to a mile, there was a 150 to 250, some were close to 300 head feedlots. Because the 300 head guy, he drove a Cadillac or an Oldsmobile. The 100 head feedlot, he drove a Ford and a Chevy generally. It was how much you were doing. And usually there were also hogs. On the smaller ones, they had hogs that followed the cattle to make use, reuse the grain and everything. So when we got started on all this stuff and everybody's going, some people finally got together and thought, well, about 300 head covered almost all of the cow-calf producers and all of the feedlots on there for the average farmer. So that is where they came up with this F. It was a compromise to keep mom and pop or the small farmers that had 160, 200 acres, maybe 80 acres if they bought corn, so they could feed and make a living. This is back when corn didn't bring a buck. So feeding it was the best way to multiply its value. And then we came along, so we were doing pretty well at that. So that's been in there, so that's why there's this little niche. It's not called a CAFO. It was called an AFO. And it was for the small, average producer, the small family farmer. And it worked quite well. And then, as time went, we started, corn got to be a little more valuable, and livestock was a little more troubled with a lot more work, because it's a lot of work to feed cattle or feed hogs or do anything like that. So eventually, when corn got up to $3, $4, $5, then it made more sense to take your calves, run up to the sale yard here, sell them, a guy from Iowa come over and bought them, and then you ran down to the elevator and you sold your corn, and they shipped it over to Iowa. And then the people in Iowa did it.
Finish up, you're almost out of time.
Okay, basically it has been that way. It was set up for the small farmers to keep their operations going. The small young guys had a chance to get started and such. And that's why there was a reason there. It was to help the little guys who were trying to do it.
Thank you. Anyone else like Chris? Dan, come on up.
Dan Grant, Mission Hill. Some of the confusion that likes to be thrown out there is the 300 head thing. I guess it would be a lot different if we had 300 head of pig versus 300 head of cattle. The state uses a straight head count, so why doesn't our county adopt the straight head count as well? So therefore we could get away from having 2,400 head of baby pigs or pigs in a barn, but calling it 290 animal units so we can get past this building permit issue. Because the public view, if you have to get a CUP just to own a pool out in ag land, why is it okay to throw 2,400 head of pigs in a building and just call it a building permit? So why can't we as a county go with what the state does and go with the straight animal count per head versus cutting it down into animal units? It would eliminate a lot of the confusion for the public. Just my thought.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Christy?
I heard somebody mention earlier comparing someone having a couple horses on their property to an animal feeding operation. These are two very, very different things. We're not talking about the same thing in any shape, manner, or form. It has a definition of animal feeding operation in our zoning ordinance. The animals are confined to a specific area, and I believe, I don't have it in front of me unfortunately, or I could read it to you, but it is a set number of days.
It's 45.
45 days, right. So they're not animals out on pasture. That's not what we're discussing here. We're talking about an animal feeding operation where the animals are confined to a small area of land. I have the definition of a conditional use permit. And in our zoning ordinance, it says that an animal feeding operation is a regulated activity. You can't have an animal feeding operation wherever you want to just because you want one. And there is some ambiguity about whether a conditional use permit is listed, but yet animal feeding operations are listed as a use under conditional use permits. So I believe that would be the proper interpretation of that document. A conditional use is a use that would not be appropriate generally or without restriction throughout the zoning district, but which, if controlled as to number, and again, we're talking about numbers of animals here, area, location, or relation to the neighborhood. That's why we can't have one on a floodplain. Okay, that would pertain to location. Would promote the public health, safety, welfare, morals, order, convenience, appearance, prosperity, or general welfare. So general welfare is pertaining to the health of the general public or the people that have to live near one of these things. We have on multiple occasions discussed all of the health risks that are associated with confined animal feeding operations and living in close proximity to them. There have been voluminous studies done by the University of Iowa and Notre Dame down in North Carolina. They've done a lot of health studies also that document scientifically the health risks that are associated with them. So the very definition of a conditional use permit, this is why it's necessary when we're talking about hog operations. Hogs are some of the worst animals when it comes to confining them to a small area, and the hydrogen sulfide and the methane and all the toxic gases that are emitted by these animals. It's my time?
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You got a few seconds.
Oh, 2 seconds. Okay, so this is why I believe that a conditional use permit is necessary, and I agree with Dan that perhaps we should go with what the DENR is currently using, and that is numbers of animals rather than animal units.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, well, Christie's at the podium. Can I ask a question?
Let's make sure we get everybody an opportunity to speak. Would anybody else like to address the commission on this subject matter right now? Anybody else? Did you have a question, John? Did you? Is it for the commission?
To the chair, Christie has.
John, would you go up there?
If you're going to address it to Christie, talk to her offline. We're getting behind schedule here, so.
Very simple question. How many CUPs did they have for Class F operations when she was on?
John, they can't hear you. I can't hardly hear you.
Take that up with her, John. I'm on a last chance. If you'd like to speak, address the commission. All right, I'm going to close. You spoke once already.
Okay.
I'm going to close the public comment section now, and the board will have discussion. So, Joe, you want to take point on this?
Yeah, I guess from where I sit, it's more paperwork for a producer, but other than that, there's really nothing more than the building permit itself. It's going to be an additional weight in the time frame, I guess, you know, that process, but I don't see it as being too much of a hindrance. You know, as Louis stated, he tried to avoid getting a conditional use permit, and a year and a half later ended up getting one anyway due to litigation and the problems it caused. So again, I'd just like to get in front of that. Again, there's going to be an assumption made that how we act going forward is going to be determined by results of the litigation, and I've stated in the past that that portion, especially of the ordinance, needs to be clarified. We need to address the concerns that have been brought up, because I don't think anyone intends on prohibiting 4-H or even the, call it the, family farmer raising 100 head of beef. I don't think that was the intent at all, so. But I do feel we need to go this way from here going forward until either it's redefined or litigation defines it for us.
Any other comment from the board? Are you going to make a motion to, or did you have anything else you want to say?
Do we need a motion? I don't think we need a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, if we're going to do a motion.
If you're changing something.
If it's going to be our policy to have all Class Fs go through a CUP.
See, okay,
from here on
I see.
out, let's make a motion and we'll vote on it.
So I'll make a motion that all Class F permits require CUP to be further reviewed at a later date.
From here on out?
From here going forward.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
And I think we need to be very clear that this is until we can review the ordinances.
All right.
And I have been going through and reading the updated ordinances, and I have red marks all over these things of what I feel are some inconsistencies. As I read section 507, conditional uses, the first thing listed is animal feeding operations, along with fairgrounds, golf courses, kennels, and I know in the past we have required for kennels, because I've watched one, and game lodges and all kinds of things. I think the interesting thing is when you turn back to section 1805, which is specifically conditional uses, it lists that the commission, meaning the planning commission, shall not review a conditional use request unless and until all documents required for said use have been satisfactorily completed. And then it lists what I feel are not too overburdening A through H, ingress, egress, right-of-way, refuse service areas, utilities, screening and buffering, signs, required yards and open areas, and general compatibility. Those are the things that would apply to all CUPs. And in that section for ag, it has 47 allowable CUP uses. Wind energy is listed there as well. And we all know wind is coming, and that will be one thing we'll review as well. Swimming pools is listed. And there's some other interesting things there I don't know if should be listed or not. So going forward, I think the reason we are doing this is to have a time frame where we can have a public discussion about, is this the direction we want to continue for 10 years? That everybody's got to have a Class F for an AFO of any size? Or do we want to go and change that number so that there are folks who don't need it? And that's a public discussion we have to have. And I look at this year as reviewing this whole book, and this will be only one section that we are reviewing. Now, when you get to section 519, it says animal feeding operations are considered conditional uses and shall comply with the conditional use process. And that's the A through H that I just said. And then it goes on to list some more specific things for different classes, A through E. And this is where Class F is exempt from all of these, which would be 1 through whatever it is for setbacks and all kinds of things, all the way through 13. And there's a bunch of things in there. So I think there's enough language in the ordinances to merit review, certainly. But I think at this point, I think it is the right decision to require it, because it seems that everyone that has come forward has been in a lawsuit recently. And I do hope the courts come out and say one way or the other. But until then, I think it is the right decision.
Is there any other further discussion from any of the commissioners? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, would you read the ordinance or read the policy change?
John, this is not the time. Roll call vote, please.
Joe?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Don? Dan?
Yes. Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 15, subdivision approval by Tom Knodel and Greg Reichen. Are those individuals here? Come on up, sir. Thank you. This wasn't in the packet, and the rest of the continuance was in the packet.
The one that you got was the wrong one, it was continuance, and this is the actual motion.
Yeah, we just have, it's been approved by the Planning Commission, but 44 acres, and we want to develop about 11 of them. One of the lots on there already is where Greg Reichen lives, and his house is built. I'm going to be building a house in the lot next to him, and then we'll be selling 6 other lots in that subdivision.
Not much of my business. Do you have covenants out there?
We will be developing them. You know, Bob Law, we bought the land from Bob Law. He has covenants in that area, but they will be very similar to his covenants. Okay. The homes out there, the lots will be 100,000 plus, and the homes will be, you know, rather expensive homes.
Do you have like accessory structure size on your covenants? Are you
It'll be
regulate that?
whatever the zoning laws will be.
There is talk
what we're
of the
doing.
Planning Commission about, you know, making some adjustments
Right.
to that, so it may be in your best interest to, if you don't want to run into problems later down the
Yep.
road, if you would put those requirements yourself on that and, you know, self-regulate that,
Yes.
that might be in your best interest to
Yeah.
do that. So.
Yeah, we will be doing that then.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners? Pat, did you have anything you'd like to add to this?
I should read the legal. I mean, let me read the actual
Yep,
thing
yep.
into the record.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. Got any more for Todd?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so this was moved by the Planning Commission, recommended approval of a preliminary plat described as lots 3 and 4 of Tract A of Law Overlook subdivision of the southwest quarter, the southeast quarter of Section 7, and the northeast quarter of Section 18, Township 93, Range 56, and lots 1 through 5, Tract B of the Law Overlook, northeast quarter of Section 18, Township 93, Range 56, hereinafter referred to as Utica South Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota. E911 address will be announced Okie Dokie Lane, Yankton, South Dakota. And just to make it clear, there will be some plats coming in front of you off of this preliminary plat in the near future, and one of them will be lot number 1. And one of the discussions in the Planning Commission is that lot number 1 is the access to lot number 2. There's currently a house that's previously platted on lot number 2, and the lot number 1 will be sold to the individual that owns lot number 2, and then that will settle any easement issues because they will be owned by the same individual. And then we do have notice in our findings here that if lot number 1 is sold in a separate fashion, it will have to have a proper easement.
That's state law anyway, correct?
Yes,
So.
yes. And then we just make sure that they build them appropriately. State law just says an easement, but we make sure if it's a driveway or it's a common use that the appropriate width and metrics are met for the building of that access, which currently exist already, but anyway, just to make that clear. So when you review these, one of the things that the Planning Commission does a very good job of also is always making sure about access and how it works. And then one more thing I want to make clear. We request a 47-foot turnaround or a cul-de-sac, and this one meets that because his right-of-way in there is 66 foot. So an emergency vehicle can turn around at any place in there and get back out again, and that's a requirement for our subdivision. Any questions?
Any of the commissioners have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Anyone in the public like to comment on this? Either for or against? I can close public comment. Any discussion from the commission? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the subdivision proposed by Todd Knodel and Greg Reichen, based on the findings of fact.
I got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Joe?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes. Motion passed. Next item on the agenda, item number 16, update and map on all AFO, KFO locations in the last 2 years. Pat? What? Do I have to sign? Thank you.
Okay, I saw this on the agenda, and I had been working with Harry Renman over at District 3 prior to seeing it on the agenda, so we were kind of had a head start. This is what I'd consider a draft. I know we can continue to work on it from your directive. You have a legend over there, and this is all KFOs and AFOs that have been over the last 2 years, plus the existing ones that were here prior to even that period of time. So I know the legend is a little, we were kind of dancing around a little bit of how, is it easy to see, is it fast? It's not quite that, but let us work on it a little bit more. It's what we could make work at this point. So you can see that we have some that are in court, and some or I would say being challenged or in litigation, and some that are not. And so we tried to break those out for you also. And so it's a start. I can take any directive you're looking at in the future. I do know that I've had some input saying, should we put the fields on there too, that the manure application's on, which it's a project, but yes, we can do that. But just, through your directive there, let me know. I also have to check with I'll check with DENR, but I don't think there's any problems. But I have had some producers say to me that be careful about how public some of this gets for biosecurity, food biosecurity. Now, I don't know what that means, so I will get that word. I can't see that we can't do what we're doing, but if I get some reason we can, I will certainly relay that on. Everything that we're putting on there so far is meets litigation, meets the state's attorney's approval. So I don't know why or what that would kick in that one, but I will keep you informed if it does. So we are being aware of it.
Sure.
Any questions for me?
The state maintains a map, don't they, of all their permitted facilities?
They do. They do have one.
Do they
And
maintain the fields
No.
as well?
No.
They just have the listing of
Yep.
the fields on the
Yes.
separate.
And then every year, well, actually it isn't every year, every time fields are changed, then the state sends us, Yankton County, those changes. And they say where the fields were and where they are now. So it's a little bit dynamic, but we can certainly move it around. District 3 has no issue with this. As it starts building up a little bit more, they will want to talk about some compensation. But in the meantime, we can work on this and see where we want to go with it. And what we want, how will I say this? What's some objectives with it too? What are we doing with the information? So we can continue to work on the map to make sure we can get you that information available.
And the state only is if they're DENR permitted or 1,000 animal units or
Correct.
more. So
Correct.
Some are less, but they still have the permit in which
Yep.
DENR would have a local.
And there's also, it's interesting, if you take a look at Janesville, Janesville should have a AFO or KFO that should be up there. There's one up there on the very top. There should be one almost towards the middle, just up above the Janesville label. That would be Fred Schultz's. But DNR isn't in there. So, and I don't know why, because Fred Schultz's is at least a Class D. So
he was at the DNR training.
Okay.
I spoke with him, so he's
in DNR.
Yeah.
So for some reason, that's slipping through the cracks here, and I'll find out what that is. But that's the only one that's not on the place. Now, the other thing I have to say, I don't know if that's an ownership thing or what, but anyway, we'll get to the bottom of that as far as what that means and why, because he obviously has fields that we're putting it on too up there.
Ed, am I correct? Are there 17 CAFOs?
20.
What I counted here?
There's 20 new ones. 20 new ones. 20 of them in the last 2 years.
20 of them.
Yep. Yep. I think we, before we started, we had 8. But they're the big ones. They're everything, larger than a Class C or larger. AFOs, we've got quite a few out there, and they are not on this map. And again, just give me directive. I'll work with District 3. Mary and I have got this all set up on a GIS. It's very easy for us to do it, and we'll continue to work on legends and making this so that it's even simplicity and anything else that you would like.
Any other?
Well, I think that's a start, yeah.
Okay.
Start for what we got.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
other questions for Pat? Thank you.
Okay.
I do have one thing. Is there a way you could overlay this with the floodplain that we got, and now the new 2019 floodplain that's coming?
Okay, you got to be careful. We can't be, that won't go into play. Let me just talk about the floodplain operation. That will not go into play until 2021. We are just in the, elevation establishment stage right now. So they're out there as surveyors shooting the elevations to see where we're going. The main impact for the new input, and this was started in 2016. So we've been working with them all along. And currently on 2019, they're going to work on completing the elevations survey. And then after that, they'll start to shoot that. And the places that we're looking for in Yankton County are basically around Napa Junction area, because there's a large input of improvements going to go on out there. So they're going to give us elevations, which will be very helpful for us, because currently every time we do anything out there, that has all been done through engineers. And we do, if you ever wanted to take a look, we have done 3 floodplain development permits out there already. But what we're utilized is the engineers do all of the surveying. That works, that's great, but when you have the FEMA doing the initial, they take it from a Zone A to a Zone AE, it gives us as a county and me as a floodplain administrator a backup, so that we can look at what the engineer said and what's FEMA saying and make sure they match up. And so as much as I think the economic development will end up being, and they think so too out there, they're going to make that be an AE. The largest impact on the floodplain will be the city of Yankton. Most of what's going on is going to be inside the city of Yankton. And so, and again, otherwise that's the only place that they're really working hard on doing any AE for us is over there. We did ask them to do it on the Missouri, and they elected not to, because they feel real strongly that the Corps of Engineers has a solid handle on that, and that they can provide elevations if we need them along the Missouri. And then the Jim River is already Zone AE, the entire river. So so that allows us to do a lot of elevation estimates and also floodplain permits based on their elevations.
Are you aware of on the FEMA website they have where you can have the split screen and you can have the current flood plain, and then if you slide it over, it'll have the new 2019 on there, and there are a lot of areas in Yankton.
This county does not have 2019 yet, though, Dan.
What's that?
This county, if they're doing it, she's not showing it. This county is not quite up to that place. They do the split screen, but it's not 2019. We're not going to do the AE until 2021. So what I'm seeing her providing so far has not been not in our county. There's some other counties that are split screening and showing what's coming. But she just sent us an email, and I can certainly move it on to you, as saying, here's our schedule. And 2019 is the year that they're going to start showing us, as in floodplain managers and commissioners, but I haven't seen it go live yet. Have you seen it go live?
Yeah, we got it when we visited with District 3 has it already. It's
Okay.
been out for quite some
So I don't think that's live. I think it's available. It's what they're having us review.
Yeah, it's
a
you know,
review
it might
time.
not
It's a
be-
draft.
It's a good, it's a good case because there are a lot of areas where it's gotten bigger and there are some areas that it's smaller. It's, I guess, the best thing we have right now. It's certainly not perfect.
Okay.
I'll send that to you so you can get a look at it. All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, item number 17, administrative review zoning ordinance discussion. Who wants to take this? You want to take it, Sherry? Or do you want me to? You could take it.
Well, I guess I think we already kind of touched on it. I guess as I go through these ordinances, I think a good place to start looking is accessory structures, minimum lots, minimum yard setbacks, because when you look over the history, and Pat has to deal with all the variances that come in for the building sizes, the lot sizes, et cetera. So I think Articles 6 through 13, you were looking for a little direction to tell the Planning Commission. I think those articles, we should focus on evaluating what changes need to be made around accessory structure sizes, minimum lots, minimum yard setbacks. I hate to say it's an easy one, but I think it's one that has always been out in front of the public, and we've dealt with a lot of it. As Pat says, people are buying bigger toys and expecting to have those toys in a nice shed so they don't get snowed on and things like that. So I don't know if anybody else has any input on that.
I'd like to, maybe if it's okay with the commission, schedule a special meeting of the commission, and we could, would you want to do that? Sit down and we each identify areas that we think we need to clean it up, and then that way we can provide the planning and zoning board the direction that they need, and then the timetable on how we want to see this go through. I mean, because we're going to need to put a time frame.
Well, I think we can start with, as we talked about in planning and zoning, the things we're seeing requests for variances on, it's probably going to be towards the top of that list.
I would agree.
And I think to start with, we should task the planning and zoning board to have some sort of recommendation for accessory structure size in residential, rural residential. And I think we also discussed pools in that. But I think we should just go ahead and task them with having a recommendation by by the end of March on those two ordinances, and we can discuss further. Go into depth, because this whole thing probably needs to be gone through. We discussed potentially hiring a consultant for going through the comp plan. I know there was a lot of work put into reviewing the comp plan, and it kind of went by the wayside, and some dollars were spent on that to District 3. And I'd like to discuss now, I guess, people's thoughts on looking at a consultant. I'm not saying go for it, but I think we should maybe get some bids and see what kind of time frame that would look like. I don't know.
I almost think we should just take, at a special meeting, take an hour or two, and we need to go through this zoning ordinance and dig into it deep and identify all the areas where we're seeing potential problems, and then we need to prioritize how we're going to do it and how we're going to get there, because there's so many different things. I'd also like to see, there's been some updating that has happened, and it's recently been updated. Mm-hmm. How do we get that online to make it more easily available to our constituents? And there's a lot of things that go there. There's been some changes with the old online zoning ordinance to what we have now? Or how are those annotated so that somebody can see that? And then second off, you know, I'd like to make sure that everything was done properly. I'm sure it was, but I think we probably should sit with the state's attorney and make sure that it has all been adopted the way it was supposed to be. I think we owe that to.
Yeah, I think we've got several things on the agenda here, and
sure. So I think
you jumped into the direction, Sherry. And
that's probably the next one. The direction of the Planning and Zoning Board is very important, but I think we just need to review the zoning ordinance and prioritize what needs to be changed, and maybe nothing does, but I think there are a few areas that need to be cleaned up, and get an idea of how to do that, and then that should be the direction that we task the zoning board with.
And that's fine. I think the first agenda item really was in response to Mr. Taw's request, and I agree. I mean, we've heard quite a bit from the public, and it's caused some issues and some pains in the county, and
probably
so I
procedures on how to update things in the future when there are changes.
Right. We need to go through I think we need to go through and ensure administratively that all the updates were done correctly and all the documentation to support it is there, and then going forward we do need to you know, figure out a policy to make sure that anytime something is updated within the ordinance, it's done in a timely fashion, and we need to get that back onto the webpage and figure out a secure means of doing that, and a way to reduce confusion. So
it's on the web, right?
It's
I
not
thought
on the
you said
web.
you were,
It's not.
I thought you said it was.
So how do we want to do that in a normal meeting? I think that could take some time. Do we want to just do
No,
a
I
special
think
meeting?
an administrative review would be
Special meeting.
a separate meeting, and then
I
I
would-
just want to work. That should be separate than direction for planning and zoning board, I guess.
I think it is, yeah. I would agree. You got anything you'd like to say on that, Gary? Or?
No,
Okay.
not right now.
Do you have anything you'd like to say on that, Sheila, for the administrative review, special meeting, you think?
Well, I think we have to have a good plan going into that meeting. I don't want to just show up in a meeting and no one's read the ordinances, and we start at page 1 and we start reading the ordinance, I guess. So I think we need to put a little onus on ourselves to give ourselves enough time to read them. I'm 3/4 of the way through the new ones, and I think I won't get that done this week. So if we're looking at mid-February of having a meeting and everybody comes prepared to have their hit list, I've got my hit list already started, and I've went through the documentation in the front and such of when the ordinances were updated and stuff. So I think we're going to have a public meeting. We need to have a very clear direction of where we're going to discuss at that
I'm
meeting.
thinking kind of
and be prepared.
a work session where we go through and discuss what we need.
And, yep, I can be on board with that if we come.
That's
with
fine as far as
preparation.
identifying places that need addressing. I think we still need to address the request for an administrative review of the update process. So what I'm talking about is we need to sit down, review all of the supporting documentation. And this would be limited to the changes 12/28/18 of that resolution.
Yep.
We need to audit that procedure.
Okay.
Put you in charge of that, is that fine? And then if you have a meeting you'd like to set up for that, let us know and we'll do it. So.
You want me to audit it or have a committee?
Well, I want
audit
you to
it?
be in charge of going through that process, and if you need somebody else to help you.
Okay.
let us know.
I can do that.
Work. Anything else on administrative review? Okay, we'll go on to the next item. Planning and zoning membership and board direction. I think we already touched on the board direction, that they want clear and concise, task, condition, and standard, and when we expect them to be completed with that. Joe mentioned accessory structures. Did you want to touch on that again, Joe? Accessory structure for?
Yeah, we've seen, that was brought up in the planning and zoning. I don't know if I have that with.
There's a, yeah.
Here's a list of, I don't remember, 30-some variances we've given on accessory structure size. And I guess if you read definition of variances in the ordinance, we shouldn't really be giving them out lightly. And so if we're continuing to see these requests, we need to either update the ordinances or figure out why the requests are coming in. But we really shouldn't just be giving out ordinances because we feel that we don't have to follow, or variances because we don't have to follow the ordinance, so.
Yeah, and again, I think we can put in there the minimum lot sizes and the yard setbacks, and that would be Articles 6 through 13, and that's essentially R1, R2, R3, and all of those, and I think by the end of March. So essentially, we've got an administrative review we're doing, and then we have the Planning Commission working at the same time to be a little bit more efficient at addressing those specific numbers that are in there. I agree with that.
And I think we're going to be placing a lot of work on the Planning Commission coming up if we are going to make some of these changes. And I think that leads into the membership. Is if we are going to make some of these changes, I think it'd be good to add maybe at least a couple members to the board. I don't. Historically, the board has always been 13 until recently, and I think it would do the county good to have a board that had extra people on, especially if we're going to be tackling some of these ordinances. What's the board's thought?
I think I disagree with that. My experience working on big tasks like this is sometimes when you get too many folks at the decision-making table, not a lot gets done. One thing I would emphasize is that the Planning Commission encourage public input. Just because there's only 9 people sitting in front of you doesn't mean you can't have a say in the meeting and that you shouldn't be listened to. And this goes with, at the last meeting we talked about, there's 4. 4 of the 9 positions are up in April. And at that time, we need to have 3 of them have 3-year terms, and one of them needs to just have a 1-year term. And because next year, Mr. Welch is the only one up, 1 out of 9, so we kind of get out of sync on that. But I think 9 is a good number. I don't have a problem with 9. I certainly wouldn't reduce it at this time, but I lean more toward following with 9.
See, I'm opposite. I served on the zoning and planning board. You know, when it was 13, I thought it went very well, and I think we're gonna put a lot on those individuals. If we're gonna be meeting multiple times a week, that's a big strain for just 9 people, and you know, not everybody shows up every meeting as it is now, and you know, it's especially with the election is there's. I think we could use a few new faces on the zoning and planning board with maybe some different ideas and a different direction, and the only way we get that is, you know, by adding some new people. So I don't know, what are your thoughts, Joe?
I think we probably owe it to the Planning Commission to task them with some sort of a schedule. You know, outline what we feel needs to be done in it. What needs to be done and then the time frame, and you know, if workload presents itself that we need more people to increase or to move that time frame back, you know, we certainly can look at it. We can probably look at positions soon, getting applications in, so we're ready if and when that happens, I guess.
What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Being a middle kid, I was always putting out the fires. So Dan's looking at 13, and Sherry wants to stay at 9, and Joe really didn't give us a number here. Could we come to a compromise of, say, 11?
I could do that.
You could do that? Sherry, could you live at 11?
Boy, I don't know, Gary. I'm pretty stubborn.
Well, so am I. But I know that it's a 50-50 compromise that way, and nobody's getting cheated, and I know that sometimes people aren't able to show up. And
I think having more people from the community, I think, is a good thing. Having a larger board with a diverse background, I think that's a positive, and I think we could use that as an asset for the county.
I guess, in my thought, in discussions in the past, is it more of the same isn't necessarily better, as long as we truly have a diverse group. That's what I'm going to be looking for, I guess, and that's where I would probably like to see what we have for applicants, and probably pick a board based off of what we have for applicants and what our workload is going to be, what we're tasking them with, and if 11's the number, then and we have 11 qualified people. And
is that a motion to?
I was going to suggest we delay this until we understand some feedback from our current planning commission, and if we're overloading them and they need additional help, certainly they should have some say.
I'd have to agree with Sherry too, that we just table it for a while, and maybe we can talk about it.
Pat, would you like to say
If you
something?
allow me, let me just give you a little bit of history in the past and how the terms are up in April. And so the April meeting, the new commission starts. So basically the current commission, their terms are up in March, after the March meeting. What we've always done in the past is the first meeting in February, we present a letter to the commissioners. And the letter states, we've done some historical, like Dan had said, when did we have 13, when did we have 9, that kind of thing. We were also doing some various counties. I'll do the same thing for you because you can see what other counties are doing. And at that point, we request permission from the county commissioners to put in a public service announcement asking for individuals that would like to serve on the county planning commission. And then we can bring, and in the past, the commission has waited until the second meeting in February and then offered that for us to put it out there. I think the way you're visiting now, you're preparing that you could make a motion even at the first meeting in next month after you get that letter. It will be in your packet. It will be a piece of your information. And you could elect to make a motion then to say we wish to at least do a PSA to request applications. And then we run that pretty consistently. And then they come in, and all we ask for is I get a few on a napkin, but I would like a nice little paragraph stating why they would like to be on the commission. We will take emails. We don't like to do it verbally, but we have done some verbally and then make them come in and sign it so that we write it for them. But however it comes in, if they're interested, we do get their request in front of you. And it's a very simple request. I request to be on the planning commission for and it's a 3-year term. And then you can have them in your packet for the second meeting in February, or you could even wait until the general process has been the second meeting in March, in which they make a vote, and you do the vote that Patty then tallies to say who's on this commission. And the votes we generally try and keep them so that they're private. You're not doing it, you're doing it on slips of paper. And then you can announce who was appointed on the commission. And then we turn right around and write letters to the applicants that received the commission and the applicants that didn't, both ways appropriate letters. And then the ones that do, we will get them within 10 days, their zoning book and their training manuals, so that they're prepared to come to your first meeting in April. Now, with that being said, you can go from there. We will have, I will say now, we will have that letter for you on your first meeting in February. And then we don't do any PSAs or anything until the commission tells us. Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you.
So I guess we're back to membership. If we Want to increase it or not and advertise?
No, I think we delay that for a while.
Yeah, I think we should
For how
table
long?
it for a little while.
Next meeting, yep.
Kind of like you said, wait till the applications come in and.
Well,
Yes.
we'd have to announce that we're gonna, because we'd have to announce that, we're gonna have to announce that we're gonna get the board to a different level if we're gonna announce.
We have to do that
people.
today.
Well, we don't have to do anything
No,
today,
but-
but
If we had 50 applicants come in, we could announce them.
I think we need to
I'm sure we're
decide as a
gonna have
board
close to that, right?
if we're gonna go to 11 or 13 or whatever. If we're not gonna expand, then there's no need to take any applicants until, March timeframe. If we're gonna get.
Well, either way, I think we just take those applicants early and make that decision then.
So do we wanna, advertise now for
I
applicants?
think at our next meeting, it'll be on the agenda for our next meeting, and first meeting in February. Pat said it would be in our packet.
You have to have it on your agenda.
Yes.
You have to have it on your agenda. All you're doing on your agenda there is just simply saying, planning commission member, PSA, and then we get you that letter, and then, I think the way we do it is planning commission members for 2019
So
is
Pat,
what the agenda would be.
We don't have to have a specific number we're gonna fill on the,
When we do that PSA, we should. Don't you think? Like we're gonna have 4 openings, or we're gonna have 6 openings.
so you'd like to have that on the announcement?
I mean, right now, whether they're on board, even the existing members are gonna be an open position. Now, they can reapply, but you're gonna have 4 openings, even if it's 9, right? So, you have 4 members up. So, even if they have to reapply. So, you're gonna have 4 at least. And if you decide at your next meeting you wanna go to 11 or 13, I'm gonna have 6 or 8. And then in the PSA, we can say we have 6 openings, or we have 8 openings. That I think would fit, whatever. If it's not the February 5th meeting, then it's the next one. But somewhere, when we do the PSA, we should know, we should be able to tell them.
We don't have to do it today?
No.
Okay.
Any other commissioner comments on that? All right. Transparency Initiative.
Actually, I have one, and this goes back to direction for the Planning and Zoning Board. I'd like to ask Pat, I don't think we need a motion, but can you start generating quotes on a comp plan for a third party?
Okay, yep.
Get,
Yep. Okay.
I know the city's done that in the past.
Yep.
Get a couple of different,
Okay, so what we'll do is have it.
On the agenda though, to make a.
We can't make the motion, so you're doing a directive to just say that, start doing the research for a comprehensive plan?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
All right, next item, Transparency Initiative. We were gonna talk about public comment period, meeting start time, consent agenda, and social media. For the public comment period, I guess me personally, I would like to maybe move it to the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if anybody has a different idea on that. If somebody wants to come and address us, they could do it right away at the beginning of the meeting. I know that may push the schedule back some, but I suppose we could always add another comment session at the end if there's a lot of public comment.
if we did a short period at the beginning and then the rest falls into the end, and if it ends up messing up our schedule down the road, we can move it again, so.
Yeah, I just, I'd hate to have somebody sit through a whole meeting if they just wanted to address us on one item, so.
I think 2 different times would be good. One towards the beginning, one towards the end.
Did you have something you'd like to say on that? Or do we need a motion on that, or can we just adopt it?
Do you want to, the first thing, you want it before claims? Because claims is usually the first on the agenda.
What is everybody's thoughts?
I'd say right away. That's fine.
I think so, right away.
I will limit it to maybe at most 10 minutes, and if somebody needs to, multiple people speak, then, they're just gonna have to wait.
Just allow 10 minutes for the whole.
Yeah, just 10 minutes for the whole thing. All right, you got that. Next, meeting start time. I know I've heard from many people that 4 o'clock isn't feasible for them to get here on time because of work. I think maybe a 6 o'clock start time would be better for get people here. What do you think, Gary?
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I don't know how the other commissioners feel.
I'm fairly
I'm open
on that. You know, we don't want to get too late. Some of the meetings go pretty long, but
Pick up the pace.
7 o'clock is too late.
yeah, 7's probably too late. But you know, 5:30 or 6 or something.
And if we have a department head or employee, I think try to prioritize them at the beginning so they can, they're not having to stay late.
You know, you just said 5:30. If people get off work at 5, that'd give them a half hour to get here.
That's tough with me, with kids and
Oh,
everything and
okay.
activities, so
No, I
like
don't have a
6
problem with
o'clock
6.
would be best if that's okay with the rest of the commission. 6 o'clock?
Sure.
We need a motion for that, or can we just,
Yes.
all right. So somebody want to make a motion to move the meeting start time to 6?
I'll make a motion that we move the county commissioner meeting times to 6 o'clock.
And I'll second it.
Motion and a second, further discussion.
The only thing I can see it being a challenge is tonight we have a drainage commission meeting after this meeting, so it will be kind of late for those of us who are on the drainage
Are those
commission.
typically
so
scheduled the same nights, though?
it won't be okay.
This is unusual because of your March or your January 8th meeting.
That's what I
Because you were a
thought.
week late.
Gotcha.
So you'll always meet the first and third Tuesdays, and we always meet the second and fourth.
Okay.
Planning on the second and
Gotcha.
and if I knew this would kind of, but it's a real simple meeting tonight, so I kind of pushed this. But if you get too late on those things, then I run into the issue getting them in front of the board next month, and so with the drainage. So this is an exception. We've had like 4 over the last 10 years, so it doesn't happen very often.
All right.
Okay.
Only concern.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed. Consent agenda. What is the board's thought on having consent agenda?
That's that on.
Well, didn't I add that? Okay, well, that's not on it. We could discuss it anyway, or?
I would wait until.
Okay, we'll have to have that on the next meeting. Social media, everybody is on social media these days. I think it might be a good option to have a county commission page where we could put things like agenda and updates to our meeting times and things like that.
We already have that.
For the county commission?
Mhm.
Okay. Who's in charge of that?
Oh, Valley is now.
Valley is, okay. So do we
And it
just-
has your commission dates and whatever you want on there, just
Okay.
let her know when she can put it on there.
Okay.
What platform is that on? Facebook? What social media are you talking about?
I think Facebook, probably.
Okay.
Oh, we don't have Facebook, it's just on.
Okay. Well, that's probably.
That's, I mean, when you say social media,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean that. I'll shut up.
No,
You know
no.
what I'm talking about, right? I mean, which one you talking about?
Are you good with Instagram? No.
Yeah.
Well, do we have a Facebook page?
No.
Okay. And that's, I think, something that is just the way things are going these days, where,
Well, I know in the past, there's been, you know, columns written in the paper bi-weekly. There's radio programs, weekly, I think. I think we should probably utilize those, but I think social, you know, a Facebook or something isn't any different than those. You know, it wouldn't be unheard of to have a.
For example, like Yankton Buzz, you know, they've got like, what was it, 1,800 members, so it gets out there, you know.
well, and I really liked what the highway department did, is when we had all those roads closed, they posted those for people, so, you know, you're going to work the next day, well, this road's flooded.
Right.
Find a different way, or this Johnson Bridge is closed down.
Right.
That was posted, and we have to realize there are so many people who don't listen to the radio, you know, maybe they don't get the newspaper, maybe they don't get it every day. How else do you reach, you know, your constituents? So I think it's, you know, something that we have to embrace. It's not gonna get less important.
Right, no, I think it'd be a fine platform for getting information out there. I would probably caution to disable comments, you know,
Yeah,
not to
I
have
think
a,
so.
if people want to engage, they can come to a meeting or email, you know.
I would agree.
You don't want to see a
Yeah.
battle on,
you know, it'd be, I would think, envision you post agendas and updates and
right.
maybe weather alerts and things like that, is how it would go. And if we end up not using it, we could not use it, but I think it'd be a good thing for the county. So, do we need a motion to
No.
do that?
We'll just check into it.
Okay, I'll set something up and keep you guys informed on it.
Okay.
I think an important thing is who's going to be responsible for it, to make
I
sure
think
it's
that-
updated, because if I go to that site and I'm expecting an update, and somebody hasn't updated it, then you have a lack of communication and a disappointed customer.
I think that, you know, we could task myself as a chairman with, you know, that's, you know, part of the tools to speak with the public, if they'd be okay with that. You know, and I wouldn't imagine it would be hourly updates, you know, just maybe bigger news events or things like that, so if we're all okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, 17A, we're gonna have Mr. Hart's.
I think there's just one comment
Oh, somebody have a comment?
on the public comment.
Oh, right, we had agenda item 17A, Roger Hart's, I think, sent us all an email. Is he here? Roger, are you here? You were here earlier, must have taken off. Gary, do you want to address that?
Yeah, Roger Hartz contacted me. I think most everybody knows him. He farms just northwest of Yankton. He's not too far from Deer Boulevard. He was pretty upset, and so I went out there, and he said there's trucks coming and they're gonna tear up the boulevard because they're cutting across through that, what is it, about a mile to get to Highway 50, then it gets on the Napa Road. So I went out there and I sat for quite a while. Every 5 minutes, there's a semi-loaded or an unloaded one coming from Napa Junction, coming right across Highway 50, going south, headed right towards Sacred Heart Hospital, going to Nebraska. I've got video of about a half a dozen of them here, and they're really tearing that road up good. 5 minutes, every 5 minutes a truck. You can add that up for yourself. They're supposed to go up Highway 81 and cut across by Walmart. And looks like they're taking a shortcut. There's a lot of people who live on that stretch. Bob Law lives on the corner, and I don't know how many people live there. What, 30, 40 homes right there? Kids. These trucks are flying through there. I followed a couple of them. They're speeding. I'm going speed limit behind them, and they're just pulling away from me. So we need to do something there. Not just tearing up the road, but public safety.
Gary,
So, yeah, so on that, at the last meeting, Don took the lead, and he did call the state's attorney, and he's supposed to be getting a resolution ready so that we can put no through truck signs at each end of that chunk of road. So, but the state's attorney wasn't available for the meeting, and Don is on vacation as well, so
I
that.
get carried away, but
Yep.
I know that if you're gonna put a no truck sign on there, on the way to the commission meeting today, I saw 3 people run stop signs, didn't even slow down, so will a sign really stop them?
Well,
We need
but,
to fine them.
and that's the next thing, we have to enforce it.
Yeah.
So
And make it a
that's-
stiff enough fine. I know when I was deputy sheriff for Dave Hunoff said, when you get in their pocketbook, you get their attention. And that's a quote right from Dave Hunoff. So
as soon as the state's attorney working with Don, as soon as that's done, we'll get that on the agenda and get it implemented as soon as
Sorry, yeah.
possible. So let Roger know if anybody gets them that we're aware of it. We're doing our best to get this taken care of. So, all right, next item on the agenda, public comment. We have two people that signed up for public comment. Joanna Meadows, are you here? Yeah. Welcome, Joanna.
I am Jonna Meadows. I live off of Highway 52 and Deer Boulevard. I'm aware of that the road I'm addressing about is Alphus. It used to be Gary. Right now, where it goes into Gregg, where I live, you literally play, I'm going to pull a kid's game on this, pothole dodgeball. Some of them are good, probably 6 to 8 inches deep. It's tearing up vehicles. That road was not designed for semi-use, camper use, or pickups hauling campers. It was not fixed before we got our first snowstorm, and it's just gotten worse. And there where you turn onto Alphonse, someone has dug in like a new culvert. It sinks probably a good, I haven't measured it, but from the eyeball, a good foot. And it's gotten worse. A lot of people that normally take this road into the side streets there have now gone to the other entrance into this area, which is Gregg. And now that, because of this dodgeball mess, it's starting to become a pothole dodgeball mess. I'm aware of that it's a private road. What can we do to get the campgrounds and anything else along Alphonse, along with the owner of this property, to get together and maintain that road better? Because honestly, it's tearing up my vehicles, along with everyone else's out there. That's all I have to say, and I'm just bringing it to the new commissioner's attention.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next person we have signed up is Louis Johnson.
Louis Johnson, Ballin. Just a multitude of little things I want to touch on briefly. Number one is the fact that Jay Cutts is going to have an open house on his finishing unit on the 2nd of February. I believe it's from 2 to 4. And I encourage everyone to go. There hasn't been pigs in there, so you don't need to worry about all these terrible things that pigs will do to you, because there hasn't been any there yet. That was one where on the social media, oh my God, it's in a wetland. They got a sump pump in there, which I found hilarious because on the other end of the building, it was ground level. And there was going to be flooding issues. And if the flood water comes into the top of the pit, like through a door, it's going to be 19 feet deep. I took the laser. Patty's house across the hill will be underwater. There's so many falsehoods going around. And as far as getting all bent out of shape about CAFOs and putting on restriction after restriction after restriction, do you remember when Yankton College got sold to the federal prison camp? And my God, it wasn't going to be safe to be in this town. There'd be murderers and rapists running all over. The property values were going to go in the tank. Graham Cow sold their house 2.5 miles or 2.25 miles south of me because of the CAFOs. They were one of the people on the lawsuit against me. They got more money for it than what they paid for it.
No, he did not.
That's not what, you take your turn later. Anyway, they sold it. And I heard that it brought more money. That's just what I heard. And then they went out and they bought a lot that's less than a mile away from a larger CAFO. Which, wait a minute, if you're suing me, why move into a neighborhood that's already got one? And the other thing is, on a nice cold night like tonight, I wish I could take you into my nursery. And you could see 10-pound pigs. Comfortable as hell because it's 86 degrees in there. It is unreal how efficient they are. And the pigs are healthy and they're growing well. And if we do give a pig a shot, it gets an ear tag and it goes into the ear tag bin. So it can never be sold as a non-treated hog.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak that wasn't signed up for public comment? Anybody?
I'm coming.
Oh.
That's my son you're talking about. And Louis, you're lying.
I heard that it brought more money, didn't it?
You heard wrong.
Let's be nice, make your statement.
Well, you're telling an untruth. He did not get close to what he paid for it. And what was the other statement you made? That he bought a lot, not less than a mile. Do you know where he bought a lot? Where is that? Please tell me.
Didn't he buy the one that Matt Winstead owned out of Gary Peschel's development? Out by the phone tower on 433, off of 433, right west of the Scrambler's bike, or right east of Scrambler's bike track.
I guess I don't know. I don't know if that's Peschel's or who that. Where is the hog barn that is?
I didn't say it was a hog barn.
Okay, where's the CAFO out there?
Right across the hill. Joe Tacky's old place.
Oh, Joe Tacky, whatever.
Make your statement.
There's a lot of falsehoods going on around here. Everybody is speculating, and unless it's posted, you should go look in wherever they post what the land sold for and all that. You should go look in there before you're saying falsehoods,
Patty,
because
address us as a board, don't address anybody in the...
I don't know how to keep all the untruths out of here, but that is a bold-faced one.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make a public comment? Going once? All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, come on up here. That's public comment. We're not supposed to respond, but if you get...
I'd state my name, Greg Hansen, address is Mission Hill. I just have a question. Is it going to be the policy going forward that we have to register for public comment, or what's the public comment?
There's a sign-up sheet right as you come in.
Is that going to continue? Or can I just get up and talk when I feel like it at public comment? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I guess we need to address that. I don't... it needs to be, you know, not chaotic.
I think the sign-up sheet is...
The sign-up sheet
is a good idea.
Yeah.
It lets us know who's
Well,
attending
this-
and who wants to make comment and all that.
Okay. Well, I'll add a comment then, I guess, too, after I ask my question, and so maybe I tricked you, I don't know, but I didn't mean to. But now I have a question, or a comment. Sometimes I sit here and I don't know what I want to say until after, so now do I need to run back and sign a sheet and tell you? I mean, it's impossible. This is the problem I had before, the policy previous to now, up to this point. I don't know. It's come up during the meeting that create a question in your head and you want to ask. I don't want to wait till next month or next week, or maybe I can't come to the next meeting. I don't know. It just, I'll make a comment about transparency. If you want to be transparent, you take whoever wants to come when they want to talk. You can limit them on time, but you can't tell them when I understand you want to know what they're going to say, but it's, you know, it's a free country. You should be able to get up and say what you want. I understand limiting time, but you're not always the thought's not always there before the meeting what I want to talk about, so.
And I think with tonight, we only had a couple people sign up, so we have time to do it. If the sheet is 3 pages long, we might not take extra people.
Okay, fair enough.
If that is good.
Well, I don't know, I'm just asking a question, so you take it for what it's worth, so.
Could I ask Patty a question? Is there a law that says we have to have people sign in that you know of?
I guess I'd have to check on that.
Okay.
You know, I know the city has, and I know other counties. I'll just check and see if there's a law, though.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe if there was a law and we could try and meet in the middle, we could have the sign-up sheet right at that podium, and as you get up, before you speak, you write down Greg Hansen, and then you speak.
Yeah, if that's.
If we have to meet the written requirement
Right.
for some reason, but I agree with you. I've sat in the audience and thought, gosh, I'm going to make a note on my hand here because now I want to speak, and I have gotten up and went back and signed my name after certain things.
Yeah.
So I see your point.
Yeah. Just- Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Rick. Anybody else? Public comment?
Can public comment be a question, or does it just have to be a statement?
In the past, the written rule was that you could make your statement, but you were not supposed to interact with the commissioners. They were not supposed to answer your questions or ask you questions.
Okay.
That has been in the past, my understanding.
I don't think there's anything that says you can't interact.
And
That's just the way they want it to behave. Doesn't mean you
Well-
have to behave that way.
Yep, and I'm kind of going down that path. I think as long as our conversation remains respectful,
Yeah.
I think it is a good deal to talk to the public.
And there are times where if you want to interact on an important issue, you should really get on the agenda so that we can give you the time that you deserve to have, rather than, you know, you get halfway through your question and then we limit it, you know. Maybe you need 10 minutes, but I only gave, you know, Louis 3. That's not fair to him. So that's the point of it, so.
I just got
Go ahead.
something, and the deadline to be on the agenda, Patty, is when?
We start doing our agenda on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Before the meeting,
So-
Wednesday before the meeting.
So if you want to be on the agenda, be Wednesday, and get a hold of Patty, and no problem.
So can I ask a couple questions without discussion?
Yeah, you got 3 minutes.
Okay,
Come on.
it's going to take 1 minute. Cam McAllister, Yankton. One, do the commissioners know how many current pending lawsuits are there that the county has against residents of Yankton County? So that's a question. Do you guys know that? I don't know if you.
Rob Clemish gave us a list of current litigation.
Okay.
We have not went through that list yet. Some
Okay.
of it, we are being sued, and some of it, we are the person suing.
Will you state your name? So we can
Yeah,
put you
Cam
there?
McAllister, Yankton.
McAllister.
So then another question is, can a suit be brought to a resident without the commission being aware of it? Can the zoning administrator just bring a suit on his own action without consent of the commission?
I think we better get up to speed on what this litigation, I haven't heard any of it. I couldn't answer your question for you.
Okay.
If the county is
I believe
under
that's the
litigation,
case right now, but don't.
I don't want to speak.
Okay, I was just curious.
Don't hold me to the coals on it.
Okay. Does the commission have any idea how much they spent on legal fees in the last year?
I do not.
No, okay. And then the last thing, just for transparency, is it possible to have suits put on the commission's website that they could be viewable and transparent to the general public? And I'll leave it at that.
Something we'll have to discuss. All right, last call, public comment. Anybody going once, going twice? Public comment is closed. Next item on the agenda is executive session. Personnel, so
I need a motion.
entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Why get dressed? You gotta get dressed to go to the meeting.
I can declare it out because we can't have it when we own it. We all ready? All right, I'm declaring the executive session over. No action was taken.
I need a motion, though. Don't you need a
No, I think I can.
motion
Are
to
we,
go out of a motion to go out of?
all right, I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we're now in regular session. No action was taken. Items for next meeting, do we have any? I think we're going to have a special meeting on the 28th. We'll get that published
Right,
for
at 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock to review James River bridges. Anything else from any of the other commissioners?
That resolution for the no-through trucks needs to be on there for,
Is
Yeah, I'll
that, is
check
that going to
with-
be the special meeting? If it's done, we could put that on
no,
there.
Don won't be back. I doubt if it's done.
Okay.
I'll
Anything else?
check with Rob, and Rob's out of town too, so we'll check, I'll check when he gets back.
Did you have something? Gary, for
What am I
next
gonna
meeting?
tell Roger Hartz?
We're working on it.
Just, we're working on it.
Yeah, we're drafting a resolution and to post no-through trucks, and it's top priority ASAP, so.
And can I give him a date?
Not until I talk to Rob.
No.
Okay, so.
All right,
And
anything else?
then the other thing was planning and zoning commissioner public announcement to the openings.
You just
Well,
want
that'll
planning
be-
and zoning on the agenda?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Because Pat said the first meeting in February.
Right.
Can it
I
just
think
be
that
planning
will be
and
on
zoning?
there.
Does it have to specify members?
Oh, Pat's sitting right there.
Yeah,
sorry.
it will be on the agenda.
Yeah, just have it on the agenda,
Right.
we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Thank you, everybody.